Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, where we meet cool people doing cool things, and today is no exception. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, and today we're talking to the small business owner, the sales professional, that person who's trying to grow a brand or grow themselves or grow something special. We have an expert here for you today. And by the way, if you're not one of those persons, I'm sure you know one, so please forward this episode to them. So I want to get right into it. Today's guest with me is Miss Benita Samuels, and she is the Chief Visibility Officer. That's her name of her title for her own company, which she does with all the things she's doing with brand awareness, with Visibility Solutions Group. Benita, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm certainly excited to be here and to talk with you and your listeners today.
Yes, we have so much to talk about because you have helped me in the past. You may remember we were having a look, we were really struggling to find someone for one of our companies in a certain area and this position. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And one of our mutual friends, Cecilia,
yes,
said, you have got to talk to Benita and about how to use LinkedIn. So we're going to talk about LinkedIn on the episode, but it's finally nice to meet you in person. You were such a great resource, and you were talking over my head, and I was taking all these notes, and I'm like, holy crap, this woman's a genius. And so to now have you here and share some of this, not only about LinkedIn, but about visibility and all the other things that we're going to talk about, I'm so excited. You ready?
I'm ready. Thank you so much. And wow, you called me a genius. I'm going to hold on to that for a while.
As you should, as you should. In fact, I want to bring up some of the things, what makes me say that. In researching some of the great things you've done, you actually worked with huge companies in their brand development. I'm just going to list these off. Nestle.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Pfizer, Liberty Mutual Insurance, even looking at Forbes magazine and San Pellegrino, to name a few.
Yes, I actually was instrumental. I guess you could say I'm an early adopter when we talk about the social world now, the social platforms. And I was on the team that originally brought San Pellegrino and Playtex Baby to the social world.
Are you kidding
They did not
me?
exist.
They never heard of it?
No.
Wow.
So they did not have any social presence. And that was, I was on the team that brought them to all of us on social media.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So you growing up, in the age where you grew up, was social media just coming on a burgeoning thing, or was it,
You're very kind to say that. No, I would say that was probably more of my oldest child. Digital media started to emerge. I mean, the first website came out in the early 1990s. Mm-hmm. And it really didn't start to permeate businesses until the mid-90s. I was working at a nutrition company running their marketing division at the time.
And what did that look like at that time? So you're running a marketing division, and I want to hear the moment that you go, holy crap, something's happening.
Well, somebody said, people are putting these websites up. Can you investigate it? And I did some research. I mean, it was really small things at this point. And I said, well, I think maybe it's something that we should do. I think it's going to be something. I don't know why I thought that. I feel like I have this sixth sense of when something's going to emerge in that space. And they put it out to the company, and everybody was like, I don't know. And I said, I'll just do it. And so I ended up coming in early to this world of websites. And this was before you had the WordPress or the Squarespace where everybody could make their own website. This was like heavy code. And I got into it then.
And you learned how to do it? You learned how to code?
Goodness, no. I have a vision. I can see, I can understand, I can identify what as a user is most interesting and how people might, what we call now, navigate. At the time, we didn't know what we were talking about, but really that user flow. And so I would build out at the time really what that looked like and the information that needed to be in all places. They built it, and then I helped manage it, building out how to get people there. It was very, very new. Even, I was working on products, nutritional products, and we redid all the packaging because none of them had a website address.
Oh, wow.
That far back, yeah.
So let me ask you this then. Again, because you were in the transition as we moved to, and that's even pre-social and visibility from
Absolutely.
that side. What was your primary mode of getting the word out for this nutritional company? Was it Were you doing newsletters? Was it TV, radio? What were the traditional things that you're using? Because I can imagine you may have found some pushback once you dug into it with a nutritional company and you're like, we're going to have to spend some money on this.
Yeah.
Are you sure about this? I can imagine what you went through.
Well, it was a nutraceutical product. We used to have to go through all sorts of FTC regulations. And so almost all of the work we did was collateral based and sales presentation based. So it would be coupon tear sheets for your drugstore. It would be starter kits for the pharmacist. It would be sales packages for the team to go out to meet with different companies. That was the primary. There was, in some cases we would do the insert in the Sunday newspaper. When we did the website, the idea was, and at the time, we know this now, it was really about driving awareness to the end user, where we were marketing primarily to the company that was marketing to the end user.
So you're doing B2B.
Right,
Yeah.
that generally. And so websites at that time were really moving into the place of B2C, as you obviously pointed out here. And so even the mindset of talking to the customer versus talking to the sales
the
organization,
retailer.
Was a big shift. And so, they all started out very smallly. And then what happened is through relationship, like I worked with CVS on a nutritional diachrome. This is going way back. And it was targeted at individuals who had type 2 diabetes. And so we developed a newsletter campaign and what now would be a refill program on actual prescriptions. Back then, it was on nutritionals. And so people could get reminders about when they needed to refill or to go to the store to get more product. So that's really how it evolved. It was first an informational platform, and then we used it to start to build a list and do emails. And then from there, it grew into a larger opportunity because other people had websites, and you would do banner ads on different sites. And that was, again, before social media. It really wasn't until I left that job and I went to a digital agency back in New York, Connecticut, that social media started to come into play.
And is that when you jumped into these huge companies like Pfizer and these guys, or were you at those organizations prior to the big shift?
A combination. My original career path was in advertising. When I went to school, they didn't have marketing degrees. And so my very first job, kind of fun and crazy, but I worked in New York City at an ad agency, and I worked on 3 brands. One you mentioned was Liberty Mutual. One was the state of New York. So the I Love New York.
Yes.
That was the very first campaign I ever worked on. It hadn't been in media at the time. It was a slogan, but yes, Christopher Watkins was in the ad, and I worked on that. I remember being in the middle of New York City in the middle of the night with all these lights. I was, young and starry-eyed. So I've worked on large global brands and privately held throughout my career. I'm really fortunate. I feel like I have a real cross section of experience where I've worked with B2B, B2C, nonprofit, cause marketing for large, small, and private organizations. So even as I transitioned into my independent career and launched the Visibility Solutions Group, I came with a depth and breadth of experience across many verticals, many size companies, so that I have the luxury, I guess, of being able to impart my depth of knowledge from working with big brands in ways on some of these for these small business owners.
Yes.
And I still have a wealth of relationships. So I'm always on the cusp of what's going on. And so I may not be working with large global brands now. I still have access to great resources.
So cool. I got to ask, when you're talking about staying on the cusp and working with these people, how did you decide on the salesperson, entrepreneur, small business group versus the nonprofits versus some of the, medium-sized 300-person companies, that kind of stuff? Was there something in your heart that took you in this direction, or was it a natural fit of what you do versus what that need is? How did you come to that place?
Well, I made the decision to go independent overnight.
Overnight. Okay.
Yes, it was, for many years, people kept telling me I should go independent. I found myself in a situation where it wasn't the ideal work experience for me. And so I was really trying to explore what I was going to do. And I said, you know what? I think I'm just going to try this. If I don't try it now, I never will.
Okay, so I got to stop you there. What was so you have this dream. It had obviously been kind of percolating. People are bringing it to your attention. A fear. Yes. A dream, a fear. But something made you pull the trigger. Was it the fact of the pain that you were going through in your current place was enough to push you out to try the new thing? Or was it the pleasure of what you might gain and leave behind, or some sort of commitment? Because I think people listening, even if they're not a small business owner, they can learn from this. Like if they're in a place right now where they're going, man, I just feel like something's calling me, pushing me, or pulling me, that your experience here might be something that would inspire them.
Well, I guess over the years, when I think about my career journey, what I found was with each of my positions, I was a sponge and took everything I could from a learning perspective, but I didn't realize it at the time, but I always tended to hit a wall. Like I had gotten what I needed there, and I had given what I could, and I got to a point of not feeling satisfied, which is a terrible thing to say, but you hit middle age and you can be reflective and honest about these things. And so when this particular situation really became apparent it wasn't good for me, a wonderful organization, just not a good fit for me, I had started the idea of thinking, maybe I'll do some independent work on the side and get a part-time gig. And so I'd lined up some independent stuff. And what I discovered very quickly was my impact on smaller organizations is greater. And because, as I said before, I have this depth of experience that a lot of small organizations or entrepreneurs don't have the fiscal resources to be able to tap into. And so having the experience and not the budgets that a large agency would have, I realized that I could share my wealth of knowledge, help them, and really be able to help them move in a positive way without investing so much that they couldn't support it. The other thing is that, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, I've used the word marketing a couple of times here. When I started my business, like most small business owners, I was like, oh, it's marketing. You need it, I can do it, whatever it is. And then, you get to a place where you start to recognize, well, this is really a core area where I'm really good and I can really make a difference. And so, as I moved into my second and third year of business, I narrowed the core things that I offer. Now, I can still do all of that stuff, but I know the things that I offer truly make an impact, and there are things that can be done with a fiscal responsibility that works for your small and mid-sized businesses. And through that journey, I also came to realize that when I started to talk about marketing in the early days of my business, I would often get the glazed look over the person's face, or you hear I've done that, it doesn't work. But as I did more research and did more talking, I realized that when I started to talk about visibility, people would lean in. It has a different perception. And so I did some market research, and it really came down to me that I now look at marketing as a sales tool. you hear about sales and marketing, they are hand in hand. Where visibility is really about relationships and being present and being seen so that you become top of mind, so that when you reach out to somebody, they already feel like they know you, or you recognize somebody needs help and you can reach out to them. And for me, that gives me great pleasure because I know that every business transaction is ultimately built on a relationship. I don't care if you're going into CVS. There's something that is making you pick that. It's the pharmacist, it's the store layout. You've built some kind of affinity, and that's what increasing your digital and social visibility does.
That's amazing. And so with visibility, we did talk about marketing versus visibility. You kind of summed that up. You said something that I saw from your website, and it really kind of like, it struck me because we do a lot of marketing here with the law firm. And, I've tried to put some good time into that topic myself. And I'm certainly not a subject matter expert, but I'm pretty well versed in it. And something that you said, I just wanted to bring out a quote that I saw where you say, showing up digitally for the right audience at the right time and in the right way. That's really, when you put those things together, that's what visibility is.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So can you expand on that thought and concept just a minute?
So the idea is that, we all make decisions based on a moment of time. It may have led up to that, but if you suddenly decide, okay, I need a new car. Well, if you have, as a consumer, been exposed to different brands that appeal to you and speak to you in a way that you feel like you know them. And this is very, very true, especially in the social landscape. Social media and social networking are not the same. And we can talk about that later.
Yeah, let's talk about that for sure.
But, showing up in the right place means that you as a brand are in the places where your particular audience is spending their time. Showing up at the right time means you're there so that when they are ready, you're there. So the right time fundamentally is always in the right place. Mm-hmm. People talk to me about social platforms and say, well, should I be on Instagram? Should I be doing Twitter? I don't believe that every social platform is right for every business. I don't think that Instagram is right for every business. Instagram is driven as a visual platform. And if you are in a business that it's not driven by image, if I'll even use law as an example, there's not a lot of pretty pictures that are probably coming out of your cases. Yes, you might have nice pictures of people in the office or
sure.
on these interviews, but your audience is probably not going to Instagram to look for an attorney. Your audience is probably going to Google, and that, by the way, is a social network if you're using your what's now called Google Professional Profiles. It used to be your Google My Business, that little picture off to the right of the business. If you're using that strategically, people are going to Google and are going to see you in the right place if you're using it. If they're looking for an attorney, they're probably going to look on LinkedIn because they think of professional industries in that platform. And in fact, and I know we're going to talk about LinkedIn later, but LinkedIn, by the way, is the first place people go before they go to your website. They may search Google. Google drives almost 25% of your LinkedIn profile's traffic.
Wow.
Yes. And then LinkedIn drives more traffic to your website than Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter combined. So it's really about making sure that you are in the places where your audience is, the right places, and being present, being part of the community, part of the engagement. I tell this story, and forgive me, Mia, my daughter, if you're listening. Years ago, my husband and my daughter were having a bit of a disagreement, I'll say. And I walked in, like, what is it about now? Teenage girls. And she said, I hear them talking, and she says something about Kim. And it dawns on me, they're talking about Kim Kardashian. Now, listen, people love Kim Kardashian. People don't love Kim Kardashian. Whatever you think, she's a brilliant businesswoman. But anyways, they were arguing about her, and my daughter saying, no, Dad, Kim this, Kim that. Now, I should mention my daughter's never met Kim. The thing of it is that she feels like she has a relationship with Kim because Kim is very active and engaging on the social channels where her audience is, my, at the time, 14-year-old daughter.
Sure.
And so my daughter has this false sense of reality that she and Kim have a relationship. And that's the case with brands, with companies. If you are in the right places, being seen by the right people, and engaging, you already have set yourself ahead of your competitors because people have a sense that they know you.
So let me ask you this on that note. You'd mentioned before that some businesses may not be right for some platforms. Let's use TikTok for an example. And now that platform is emerging certainly from the 12-year-old to 14-year-old demo, and it's moving up and up where you got a lot of entertainment or, now even education and stuff going on that platform. Does it make sense for a brand or a business, some of these people that we're, these groups that we're talking about, to be able to converse with those audiences in that platform before they ever need them? For example, let's just use us as a law firm. We might not advertise on Instagram, but if we start telling a story on Instagram and maybe tell the same story a little differently on TikTok because the audience is different than on Facebook, than on LinkedIn, now are you building a brand or are you wasting time if time is the limited resource? I've always thought about that because for me, organically, if we can tell a story to this audience who hangs out over here and we tell it in a compelling way, and we can tell the same story from a different perspective for this audience, now when they need us, hopefully they've known us. Does that make sense? Well,
first and foremost, you should definitely always look at the story you're telling and how can you repurpose it across the different platforms. It's foolish not to. And when you do that, you tell it in that particular audience's voice. But to your question, you always have to think about when is that user going to be at a stage that they're your audience. So I'll use Instagram as an example here. Instagram's audience tends to be the millennial, really, that 30, and you're getting some older, but really that's their sweet spot. Well, I would say Instagram is probably not the right place for your brand, but you might not realize is that same audience is now the largest audience on LinkedIn. So that would probably be a better use of your time and money because you're going to reach that audience plus all of that surrounding audience. Those are the older and then the ones who are just coming into the platform.
So Instagram folks don't just stay on Instagram, you're saying they'll also go to LinkedIn.
No. So when we talk about communities, Facebook tends to now really be the Xers and the Boomers. There's some younger people coming back. It's an interesting evolution that we're seeing happen. But historically, Xers, Boomers, and you have, my mom who's 92, those ones hanging around too. But those people are also on LinkedIn. Instagram tends to be a visually driven platform. And so if your brand is very visually driven, I just, was talking to an interior designer. That's a perfect place for them. But they could also be on LinkedIn. But a primary platform, I would say, is Instagram for them. But they'll get crossover from LinkedIn. Twitter's focus is there are two very core things about Twitter. You've got a lot of news and then you've got a lot of entertainment.
Has Twitter changed with Elon Musk?
Not yet. Not yet. Well, I don't think he has officially bought it yet.
Oh, he hasn't?
I think that I think he said he was going to, and then he wasn't going to. I don't know what the final outcome is, but I don't think the transaction has actually happened yet.
Gotcha.
But things like TikTok. TikTok's a very interesting, in an interesting place right now. because it really did start out as that tween and younger teen. And my 17-year-old is a TikTok. She gets tons of content from there. So I do think that platform is aging because their audience is aging. And I do think that there are ways of using TikTok. But again, I am still out on a decision if it's right for all brands. A friend of mine who was on the show recently, Jamie Sarche, she talks about death and pre-planning.
Yes.
And she has started using TikTok. And it's interesting. I'm watching her to see where that goes because I'm not completely convinced that's the right platform. I mean, it's doing video, basically. I think of TikTok as, the dancing, but it's basically just a video platform. And so if your audience is there, maybe. I can't tell you for sure.
Well, you made a quote that I found really impressive, and I want to read it. You said, "Today, consumers don't go looking for you. They go where they want to go and see who shows up."
Absolutely.
Such a great quote.
Yeah.
That one was like a wake up, son, and pay attention to that. And that's what we've been talking about here.
Well, people think, I think that there's this misguided idea that social platforms are going to go away. Oh, they're going to fade away. Well, I'm sorry. I don't believe that to be the case. I think they're going to evolve. I think that more are going to emerge. They're not going away. And so now the vast audience that we have has choices. And so they're going to go to the platform of their choice. I mean, I think everybody has a platform of choice. I'm a LinkedIn platform of choice. Doesn't mean that I'm not a voyeur on Facebook to see what's going on. I use that in a different way. It's not that I don't follow my kids on Instagram, but I'm not going out on platforms to say, oh, where might I find? I'm assuming that if somebody wants me to know they exist, they're going to come where I'm at.
What about YouTube? Is that the exception maybe to that?
Oh, YouTube. Well, do you know that YouTube is the second largest search engine?
I did know
Yes.
that.
So I think everybody should be on YouTube. I will say that I think every brand, every business, every person should be on LinkedIn.
And how do they do that? Because, for example, I'll tell you for a couple of companies we work with. One, obviously, Ramos Law, which I'm here every day. Is our position that we would really like to take on LinkedIn is as a professional advisor for doctors, other types of attorneys on how we do our thing, as well as the consumer who may be looking for some of the types of law we provide. On the other hand, Dr. Ramos and I work with a clinical brand called FitMD, and that does bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and medical weight loss, and so it does healthcare. In that sense, it would be then a direct advisement to the consumer to say, hey, here's health tips, here's this and that. And so is there a general way that you see for the group that we're talking about that you serve, which is, again, the salespeople, small business owners, entrepreneurs, is there a way that you see is most effective on LinkedIn for them to drive, like you say, for them to educate and entertain or inspire? That's kind of my thing. But to drive traffic to their website, any formula that you've noticed?
Well, first and foremost, I always, as I said before, I don't care if you're a business person or a business owner, you need to be on LinkedIn. Because let's start with, one, we know it's a professional platform. We don't hear a lot about breaches and things like that on this platform. It's considered the most trusted platform. Secondly, there's not a single person on LinkedIn who isn't a consumer. People lose sight of that. So that is first and foremost the important thing. The second thing is people do business with people. So even though you may be talking about the brand Ramos Law, 80% of your content should be coming from a first person. So it should be coming from Dr. Ramos, or it should be coming from you, and 20% from the brand. And it's done in a way that you are providing valuable information. And the truth of the matter is that is the case also with the consumer-focused brand. the health and wellness product.
Yep, yeah, the FitMD brand, yep.
And so, I actually, this is kind of a funny story. I asked a question at a networking breakfast the other day of what is the one thing everybody has an opinion about?
The one thing everybody has an opinion about.
Yeah.
Well, right now it would seem to be politics.
Well, I would say the one thing everybody has an opinion about is everything.
There you go. Better answer.
Yes.
Way better answer.
And so when you think about LinkedIn, you want to put content out that creates an interest and potentially creates some tension, because everybody has an opinion. And LinkedIn is a platform that continues to drive and really drill into the importance of content. It is not a sales platform. In fact, there was an article that just came out the beginning of this month of all the new algorithms that LinkedIn is testing, and they are 100% focused on content and engagement. So when you do content distribution for Ramos Law or for the medical group, you do it in a way that is going to drive conversation. Sharing something, asking a question, posing a situation, all of these things people will have opinions on, and it will drive the conversation. I say you can put something as simple as, the best color in the rainbow is red. Now, somebody might be able to dispute that. I happen to think my opinion is the best color in the rainbow is red. But I assure you that I'm going to get people who says no yellow, no blue, no, there's no best color, and that really is the foundation of LinkedIn success.
Is that by just mostly because they added video and you could do up to 10 minutes of video? Is that conversation happening equally across video and across the written word in LinkedIn, or is it still predominantly heavy towards the written side?
Well, it's really interesting because data shows that video gets more visual engagement and has a 92% higher retention rate. However, the written posts, if you're writing them strategically using kind of the foundational of understanding how long and how to structure them, you'll get more reach because of the commenting of engagement. Because that's really, when I talk engagement, I'm not talking about the reactions, the likes, the smiley faces. That's like being across the room and waving to somebody and not having a conversation. It's really about generating the comments and having the conversation. That's also why you have the ability to move people very easily from the conversation on a post into the chat. It's the Kim Kardashian example.
Yes.
People feel like they know you. They've had a conversation with you. Also, the chat on LinkedIn is a passive way of people to respond to you. It's non-intrusive. You're not picking up the phone. It's really interesting. Data shows that you have to make 3,000 cold calls. And this is really for the sales professionals, I would say. 3,000 cold calls to get one warm conversation. If you follow a structured methodology on LinkedIn, for every 10 conversations you move into the chat, you'll get 6 people who say they'll talk to you. I don't know about you, but 3,000 to 1 to 6 to 10.
Wow.
No comparison to me.
Well, and you are a content expert on LinkedIn. That's if I could say a specialty, like your black belt status is kind of LinkedIn. And in fact, I want to come back to that, but you talk about in your information about kind of this foundation of 5, where we have the brand website, the personal and business LinkedIn profiles, the GMB, which now you said has a new name, which is Google My Business that you said change, and then the business directories and the recommendations and reviews. So in putting all that together, right now we're focused on LinkedIn, and I definitely want to hang out here for a minute, but knowing what to say, like you talked about, what is there a secret sauce? Because you just mentioned a strategy, right? I was writing articles on LinkedIn, and I ended up writing 30 some articles, and I just didn't get anything other than my time writing lots of articles. And so I'm wondering, like, should articles be part of a strategy where posts lead to articles, where posts lead to videos, lead to this, lead to articles. There's a framework or a matrix that underlies how to build a business on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Can you give our audience any little quick tips on that?
I can, but I'm going to start with the first tip, which is getting back to those foundational five, because that, I think, is really the root of the success of increasing your digital visibility. We all hear about SEO. I don't do SEO, by the way. But those foundational five, your LinkedIn profile, having that first, you do that first because people go to LinkedIn before they go anywhere else. So they're validating you. It's a free platform, I should mention.
Is it growing, LinkedIn?
Oh, LinkedIn is growing.
Are there any of them that are kind of sliding? Because they're all going to evolve, right? They're going to peak. Like we've seen some of these platforms go the way of the dinosaur. Are any of these big ones, TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, are all of them still continuing to grow?
Well, it's interesting because Facebook had been taking a decline, having a decline. And as I think I mentioned, I'm seeing this weird evolution of these young 20s now coming back to Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching that to see if that's going to change that trajectory. Twitter tends to be flat, although with the whole Musk thing, we'll see what happens with that. LinkedIn continues to grow. Its reputation continues to increase, and because of the style of the platform. And Instagram continues to grow. It really, so I think, people say, oh, these platforms are going to go away. Like I said before, I really don't believe that.
They're going to evolve or mutate in some way. So now back to LinkedIn conversation. So people are starting, they're going to LinkedIn. So
you start with LinkedIn because that's the first place they're going to go. Next, you build your website because using LinkedIn smartly, which we're going to get back to, is going to drive people to your website. And it doesn't have to be a big fancy website. You can go on and do a free Google website, a GoDaddy website. Again, low or no cost investment, maybe $15 for your domain and then the hosting fee each month. But again, low or no cost.
And are there key elements that everyone, if they're thinking about getting a website or want to audit their small business or entrepreneurial website, do they need to go, I need a call to action on every page. I need to make sure that I tell my story, right? Of what the founder story is, the company origin story. Are there any key things that someone should know?
The first thing I would say is on that homepage, who you help and how you help.
Who you help and how you help.
Because if I come to your website and I don't see, it doesn't talk to me, it doesn't address my problem right away, I'm never going to move on. I'm never going to click on that call to action. And that's true about LinkedIn as well. It's you really, because think about it. If you are watching TV and you are a fly fisherman and an ad comes on for some new special fly, you're going to stop, right? They're talking to me.
Yes.
It's the same with your website.
Wow, that's so cool because I actually am a fly fisherman. So interestingly enough, as you're saying that, I'm like, I never see a lot of fly fishing ads. And if I saw one, I would be definitely stopping. So true.
Yeah. So that's probably my biggest piece of advice is not, make sure you're talking to them. Make sure you step out of your own head and say, what would my audience be looking for? What questions are they looking to get answered? Because then you are coming from a place of service and not a place of sales.
And what if, do you think most entrepreneurs, small business owners, salespeople are self-aware of what their clients are really asking for? Or do you think some of them / some of us want to think that we know, but we want them to want what we want them to want? Or maybe we need to get focus groups to really dial that in. What are your thoughts there?
Personally, I would say that I think every small business owner, myself included, thinks we know. But it's not really until we really listen do we understand what it is they want.
And do they tell us through surveys, through focus groups,
all sorts of ways,
feedback stuff in these social platforms?
Even if you ask, we're all humans. Ask the question or listen when you're talking. In sales training, they talk to you about how to get to the root of the problem and keep asking questions. If you listen, the answer's there. And if not, well, then you talk to somebody who helps you define that.
Like you.
Yeah, like me.
So let's talk about some of the other platforms.
Right.
What are some of the other things? So we talked about a website. We talked about the LinkedIn
LinkedIn
side.
website. The next one, as we said, was Google My Business, which is now called Google Professional Pages. Basically, it's the same thing. But a lot of small businesses don't have a Google My Business page because they have this perception that either you need a brick and mortar to have a page or they're not familiar with it. But every small business owner, solopreneur, business of 10, business of 50, business of thousands should have a Google My Business page because first and foremost, Google loves Google. So you're playing their game, you're getting into their algorithm. It's also a place where you get to highlight some of your work, include all your valuable information, include how to contact you. You can even include a calendar link to book an appointment with you. But the big thing that people don't realize, and I kind of think of it as a secret tip, is Google has the ability for you to post content just like you would on a social platform.
Yes.
And it's not a place where you post every day. And it's not a place where you're posting long stories and articles. You're posting relevant information about your business. It might be an event that's happening. You might be, if you're a solopreneur, you might be appearing on a podcast that you want to promote. I tell my clients, post on Google once or twice a month because it continues to pop into their algorithms. And when people come search on Google and you come up, you have more value content there for them to already get to know you. So start with LinkedIn, build your website, set up your Google My Business page. The next one is directories. And by the way, I'll just point out, so far, all three of those things are low or no cost.
Absolutely. And how much time does it take to get proficient at these, especially if some of the listeners or viewers of the show are either not super savvy on these platforms, whether they're older or whether they're just not into it, or whether they're now looking at it from a business perspective. Is there what is the learning curve?
Well, firstly, I love this quote. Everything you desire is on the other side of consistency.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
And so, first and foremost, depending on your skills and how quick you pick things up, if you're consistent, you're going to pick it up quickly. But, a shameless sort of plug here, I do a training program, and over the course of 6 weeks, I take the person from understanding how to use the platform, every single aspect of it, how to develop your profile, understanding how to use hashtags, how to write content. Through those 6 weeks, by the end of 6 weeks, they are using LinkedIn comfortably, regularly, can produce content. And by the way, I have worked with people in their 80s.
Nice.
And I've worked with people in their 30s who grew up with digital, just don't use particularly LinkedIn a lot. So if you want it, it's easy to do. You just have to be consistent.
That's good. Just study it.
Yeah.
So now you're onto the directories.
Right. So most small business owners and even individuals are part of some organization. You may be part of your alumni association. You may be part of, the Colorado Law Society. You may be part of a networking group. And most of those groups have directories where you can include your information. And most of us don't fill them out. Again, for the most part, those are free opportunities to promote your business. And although you may be thinking, oh, well, people only in that group are going to be using them, or they're all other lawyers, the thing of it is that all of these things of the foundational 5 drive your organic search. So when I said I don't do SEO, I don't do paid SEO. But these things that I am teaching here right now are all ways to drive your organic SEO.
Yes, which is the that's the foundation. Those are the pillars, right? Where now you're telling your brand, you're not buying your brand, you're telling and sharing and growing the roots of your brand.
And you're showing up where your audience is as well.
Yes.
So, and then the last one, which builds over time, is your online reputation. There's nobody listening, I'm sure, who hasn't checked Google, who hasn't checked Yelp, we all look for referrals and recommendations online. So it's really important for you as a business person to do the same.
What's the best way to ask for those reviews? I know we work with that always in the businesses I'm associated with. And, I've heard people say, well, you got to give people something to do it, right? You got to incentivize them. You've heard people say, well, no, if they want to do it, they want to do it. Because invariably, here's what I find. It made me crazy with Yelp. We
Yelp's
have
a tough
all
one.
these great reviews. One bad review, especially like we've had it come from competitors. We've had reviews come from competitors or people who weren't even clients or whatever. And then it hammers everything. And it's just odd to me. So what's the best way of maybe two-part question? How do we garner reviews as businesses, number one? And number two, if you get one of these reviews, these bad reviews, what do you do?
Well, I think there's first and foremost, there is a place for bad reviews, even if they're not honest. It shows that you're real. Yelp is a tough one because Yelp really wants you to be a paid player.
Yes.
And I can't say for certain, but there is a suggestion that when you pay to play with Yelp, those negative reviews don't show up as much.
It does feel like that.
Yes. I can't say that for certain. So with Yelp, my point of view is, well, with all reviews, you should always respond to them. Always.
Good or bad?
Good or bad. Now, if it's defaming or something like that, well, then you escalate it in a different way based on what your social policies are. And it may be taking it to the platform. It may be having, just ignoring it. There are some cases where, you can't do reviews. There's some industries, financial industry, you can't have reviews or recommendations on your LinkedIn page. So my point in the negative is respond to all unless it's a dangerous one to respond to, and then escalate it in an appropriate way. And just understand, we don't live in a perfect world, and not everything is going to be, sunshine and roses.
Do you think that consumers are savvy enough to read through some of the, let's just say, overzealous negative reviews? If they're looking online, they're reviewing a company, do you think they go by what we would call the preponderance of evidence, where they're like, man, I got 17 good ones and 3 bad ones. Every business is going to be bad. Or do you think they weight that in some weird way?
I kind of live in a world of, I believe in the good of people. Mm-hmm. I consider myself an optimist. My husband might disagree. But I do think that when you have 17 good reviews and 3 negative ones, there is definitely an understanding that, things happen. And if you've seen your brand all over and you've seen people engaging from the brand, and then you see these reviews and there's 3 negative, I tend to believe your instinct is going to be, okay, something might have happened here. But I will tell you, things like on Google, if you have a negative review there and you build up more positive reviews, they
pushes
drop them.
Down.
It drops them. So, good or bad, you should definitely try to get reviews.
And how do you do that? What's the best way?
So I find if you give the audience an easy, actionable way, they take action. Don't pay for people for reviews. Don't incentivize them. It's kind of slimy. It's not really, well, I think it's slimy. I don't think it's authentic. Mm-hmm. So I often encourage my clients, when they're done working with their client, I always say do some kind of digital outreach with a thank you, and in there put the way for them to click right through to do the review right at that moment, because we know the minute it closes out of the platform, the chances of them coming back to do it are very slim. And so I say do an outbound communication at the end of your engagement and ask.
So not like if you're a brick and mortar shop and someone comes in and they buy your sneakers and, hey, how was your experience? Oh, the salesman was great and the this and that. Oh, would you do a review right here in the store?
So generally speaking, people don't do that anymore. Early on, they used to. People feel pressured into it at that point. I would say you're better off in that case, if they really did have a good experience, direct them to a place where they can do the review, or, if you want to go right to your phone, you could do it, right now, but don't put a device out for them to do the reviews right there. And if you're a retail store, you should, be gathering data. Know who people are coming into your store, having them sign up for your list. And you can always send out a general, if you're not tracking their visits, you can always send out a general saying, we always appreciate the input from our, visitors or our
awesome clients or customers.
And when I do the end of my program, I send an email out. I actually ask them to do a survey to give me feedback so that I can optimize the program to make it better. And I ask them if they'd be inclined to leave me a review. And I give them the choice of a link to go to Google or a link to go to LinkedIn. Some people do to Facebook. On LinkedIn, you can do a direct outreach through the platform and ask somebody to give you a recommendation.
Nice.
And that one's an easy one as well. So that would be my recommendation. And to that, they're free. So you've got your 5 foundational pieces that really, when you're building your business, are low or no cost and really set that solid foundation for your digital visibility.
So here's a really important question as we kind of try to tie all this together. When does a business consider one of these options? Number one, bootstrap, shoestring, do it all yourself with you and your team. 2, hire a consultant to do some or a lot or all of this work. Or 3, bring it in-house, meaning now you have your own department. Is there stages, or is it just an individual thing when someone should look at one of those things?
One of my first experiences with a business coach said that there is a journey in entrepreneurship and business ownership. First, it's figuring it out, then it's working it out, and then it's rocking it out.
Ooh, I like it.
So when you're figuring it out, well, that's probably the time to do the bootstrapping. When you're working it out, well, this is the time when it might make more sense for you to invest some dollars and you focus on what you're good at and let somebody do that for you who's good at that, so that everything is set up and is working properly.
Leveraging time and talent and energy and resources.
And then when you get to a place where you're rocking it out, that might be the time where you hire a full-time person or bring it in-house to manage it completely. It's what is it? Crawl, walk, run?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so final question for you.
Aw.
And this goes, right? How fast has this gone? It's crazy. If you could have a meal, a coffee, or a time with anyone in history, alive or dead, who would that be? And why, or what would you want to talk about?
And I don't know when this is going to air, but there's no question it would be my dad.
Oh.
My dad's been gone 31 years. I was a young girl. My dad didn't know my husband. I actually met my husband a month after my dad died, and doesn't know my children. My children were both named after my father and my husband's father. And so I would absolutely want to sit down with my dad. I don't care what we eat. And I'd want to share everything that's gone on over the last 30 years. And I'd want to ask him if he's known what's going on. And I would want to tell him thank you. You know, he always said to me, and many parents probably say this to their kids, but you can't expect others to respect you until you respect yourself. And that's a lesson that I have taken with me forever. And I would tell him thank you.
Oh, Benita, that's beautiful. So now, if anyone listening, and I'm sure if you've been watching or listening to this, you've been absolutely filled up with respect to information on things, at least get your mind spinning, right? And of course, we didn't do a course today. We answered some questions, and this was food for thought and give some good, actionable advice. If someone wanted to reach out and learn more, and they said, hey, maybe I could use your help or at least pick your brain a little bit, how would they best go about doing that, finding you?
Well, the first thing I would always say is go to LinkedIn, and it's Benita Samuels. So it's linkedin.com/Benita-Samuels, or you can type my name in the search bar, and pretty sure I'm going to come up quickly. And you can send a connection request. You can message me if you don't want to connect right away, although I don't know why you would want to do that. It is, as I said, my platform of choice, so I'm pretty active about answering questions there. And if you're not inclined to do LinkedIn, you can email me at Benita, and that's BENITA, @visibilitysolutionsgroup.com.
Well, thank you for helping us all become more visible today, Benita. This has been a true treat for me. So good. And I look forward to continue to develop our relationship as time goes on. I hope all of you watching or listening have enjoyed the show. Please share it. If you've not subscribed via any of the channels, whether it be Spotify or Apple or whatever all those things are. Continue to watch, and until next time, keep making a difference.